Hey there, I'm Nick, a former Amazon bar raiser, and in this video I will show you how to answer the behavioral interview questions that Amazon will ask you to find out if you raise the bar on the Amazon leadership principles. If you're interested in this, please subscribe to this channel below. I'm going to unpack my answer in 4 parts. 1. Prepare your professional accomplishments ahead of time. 2. Use the STAR framework to describe each accomplishment. 3. Provide one accomplishment in the STAR format as an answer to each Amazon interview question you hear. And 4, match your accomplishments with the Amazon leadership principles. Let's start with step 1. Prepare your accomplishments ahead of time. Don't wing it. Very much like a musician, very much like a symphony orchestra that shows up on their big night to perform with music sheets so that they know exactly what to do and what music to follow. You should do the same. You should prepare your accomplishments ahead of time instead of thinking on the fly what answer to provide to what Amazon question. If you do that, to continue my music analogy, you're going to end up most likely like this cat that is walking on the keys of a piano keyboard. Do not do that. Prepare your answers ahead of time. Step number 2 is to use the STAR framework when you describe each of your professional accomplishment that you have thought of and prepared ahead of time. What is the STAR framework? The STAR framework is a popular interview format which you use in order to describe your accomplishments and failures in the Amazon interview. Let me use a different analogy. Let's take these 2 cups with M&Ms, with mini M&Ms. One of these cups is full of red-only M&Ms. The other one is full of all kinds of M&Ms, including red ones and blue and whatnot. So if I'm an Amazon interviewer, I would expect every time I reach in the cup for an answer, or an M&M in this case, I would get a red/star answer, /star M&M. And if I instead am getting all kinds of other answers, such as a blue answer or a yellow answer or a brown answer, that's not going to be very helpful, and as a result I'm not going to rank you very highly. So you should be ready to only provide the uniform STAR framework when you describe your interview accomplishments. I will show you how that works with a specific role play example. I'm going to use this very video that I'm recording to help you prepare for your Amazon leadership principles interview as an example of an accomplishment, and I'm going to unpack it in the STAR framework. So we start with S. S stands for situation. That's the context of what is taking place. In this case, I would say something like, hey, I'm Nick. I was an Amazon bar raiser for 5 years. Then I left Amazon and I started a YouTube channel called Amazon Bound with more than 3,000 subscribers, where I help talented job seekers to get hired by Amazon and change their lives for good. That's my context. That's the situation where I describe what took place before I even jumped into the problem that I'm trying to fix. That comes into the second part, the T part in the STAR framework. T stands for task. I like to also call it obstacle, but the standard name is STAR, task. In the task section, you describe what was broken. What was the problem that you're trying to fix? In my roleplay example, I would say something like, on average, Amazon hires less than 10% of all applicants who send their resumes, who apply to Amazon jobs. And to a large extent, that is because people don't know that they need to prepare their accomplishments ahead of time. They need to use the STAR framework. They need to provide one answer for each behavioral response, so on and so forth. Each behavioral question, so on and so forth. And by recording this video, I want to address this and help people get hired at higher percentages, at higher numbers. That takes care of my task, of my problem section, where I describe what was wrong. Then comes the A part in the STAR framework, which stands for action. In the action, I describe what steps I take, what actions I took in order to fix the problem. In my case, it would be something like, hey, it took me a few hours to prepare this video end to end. In the beginning, I wrote the script for maybe about an hour. Then I filmed the video for maybe 30 minutes. After that, I did post-production and I uploaded it to YouTube. And those are the steps I took. In the interview, I will give you even more specific steps and I'll talk for longer. And last but not least, actually last but most importantly, comes the R part of the STAR response. That stands for results. And in the results section, you quantify the output that you achieved based on your actions. For this case, it would be something like, hey, on average, my videos on this channel are viewed by a few thousand people. And if we assume that this video is going to be viewed by, let's say, 10,000 people, that's going to be my total reach. In addition to the YouTube channel, I also help people prepare on a one-on-one basis with an Amazon-bound service that I run. So if I assume that 1% of all people who watch this video would reach out to me, that would be 1% of 10,000 people. That's 100 people who are going to reach out to me, and 50% of those people decide to work together with me. That gets the number down to 50 people. And out of those 50 people, I work with them one-on-one. My prior data, my prior performance is that 67% of the people who I work with get hired by Amazon. So 67% of 50 people is roughly 30 people who are going to be hired by Amazon. At least 30 people who are going to be hired by Amazon as a result of watching this video and me working with them, and be paid an average of $200,000 per person. That's the end of my results section, where I quantify everything as much as possible. All right, part 3 comes next. Provide one accomplishment in the STAR format as a response to each interview question you hear by Amazon. Let me give you some context first. Amazon is going to ask you behavioral interview questions. Those are questions in the format, tell me a time you did X, tell me a case you did Y. And Amazon is going to attach, they're going to link, each Amazon interviewer is going to link each of those questions to an Amazon leadership principle. Let me show you. Amazon has 16 leadership principles: customer obsession, ownership, invent to simplify, so on and so forth. And they are going to cover a large portion of these leadership principles in the interview by asking you behavioral interview questions. And they're going to compare the STAR answers you provide to the Amazon hiring bar. If you exceed that bar with your answers on enough questions for enough leadership principles, Amazon is going to hire you. If you don't, they're not going to hire you. So let me demonstrate what I mean. Ownership is one of the 16 Amazon leadership principles. Leaders are owners, they think long-term and don't sacrifice long-term value for short-term results, so on and so forth. So if I was an interviewer who was tasked to evaluate your fit with the ownership Amazon leadership principle, I would ask you a question that sounds something like, hey Nick, could you please tell me a time when you drove a project, you own a project, and you achieved a significant amount of success with the project? What happened? What took place? What was the result? So on and so forth. And as a direct response to that question, I could provide the answer of me recording this YouTube video. So in the Amazon interview loop, you will get double-digit number of these behavioral interview questions that are going to cover as many of the Amazon leadership principles as possible. I'm going to share with you that you don't need to worry about leadership principles such as frugality, such as the 2 latest Amazon leadership principles. And also, if you're not a manager, you don't likely need to worry about hire and develop the best, which leaves you with 12 leadership principles, which you will be evaluated on during the interview loop. I would suggest that you have at least 20 to 25 accomplishments and failures prepared ahead of time. And when you hear a behavioral interview question, you would scan through the list of your accomplishments and failures that you've prepared, and you would provide that answer in the STAR format as I have just showed you. All right, and that takes us to step 4, the final step, where you should match your accomplishments with the Amazon leadership principles. This step is actually an extension of the very first step, where I told you should prepare your accomplishments ahead of time, but I've left it to the very end so that the logic is going to flow better, hopefully. And you should not only prepare your accomplishments ahead of time, your 20, 25 accomplishments and failures ahead of time, you should, after you prepare them, you should match them to the leadership principles that you believe they demonstrate. So the accomplishment of me recording this video demonstrates a number of Amazon leadership principles. These are principles such as ownership, deliver results, bias for action, dive deep. There will be a many-to-many relationship between leadership principles and your accomplishments and failures, meaning one accomplishment demonstrates multiple leadership principles and one leadership principle is demonstrated by multiple accomplishments. So prepare a matrix, if you will, with the leadership principles next to your accomplishments and failures, and make sure that when you evaluate, when you study the leadership principles, make sure that your accomplishments cover them at sufficient depth so that at no point in time you would be left unprepared and you would hear a question that you would not have potentially thought of an answer to ahead of time. All right, that was it. Those are the 4 steps you should take in order to ace the interview questions that you will hear during the Amazon interview loop, with which Amazon is going to evaluate your fit with their Amazon leadership principles. If this was useful information for you, subscribe to this channel here. Also, you should watch this video here next, where I will walk you through step by step a 7-day challenge where over the course of 7 days, you will learn how to prepare end to end for the Amazon interview. Watch this video here next, and I'll see you there soon.